It started like so many encounters that end up haunting the evening news. A quiet suburban street, a teenager walking home, and a stranger who decided he did not belong. A woman sitting on her porch noticed a young black boy moving past her yard, his hands in his hoodie pocket, his pace steady, his eyes focused only on the cracked pavement beneath his shoes. To her, suspicion bloomed instantly, as if his very presence was a disruption to the order of her world. Without hesitation, she dialed the police, her words sharp, urgent, and dripping with fear she could not justify. What followed was a spiral of tension, humiliation, and revelation that no one on that street could have foreseen. Because the woman would soon discover that this boy was not just anyone, he was the son of someone she would never have dared to confront. The neighborhood of Willow Creek prided itself on order. Manicured lawns, neatly painted shutters, and a neighborhood watch group that met once a month to discuss everything from parking violations to strangers lingering too long. It was a community built on appearances, and those appearances were fiercely guarded. Among its longtime residents was Karen Whitmore, a woman who carried herself like the unofficial gatekeeper of the block. She watched everything, noticed everything, and believed it was her duty to protect her slice of suburbia from what she considered outsiders. On an unseasonably warm afternoon, Karen settled into her porch chair with a glass of iced tea. The day was calm, the kind of quiet that lulled most people into comfort, but not Karen. For her, quiet only meant she had more room to scrutinize the unusual. And unusual is exactly what she believed she saw when a teenage boy came down the sidewalk. He was tall and lean, maybe 16 or 17, with his hoodie pulled up despite the heat. His sneakers were scuffed, his backpack worn. His eyes were lowered, focused not on the neighborhood around him, but on the path he walked. To Karen, he looked like someone who did not belong. She had never seen him before, and in her mind, that was reason enough to sound the alarm. The truth, however, was far from sinister. The boy's name was Marcus. He was a junior at the local high school, a student who had stayed late to finish an assignment in the computer lab. His mother worked long shifts at the hospital, and his father was deployed overseas. Walking home that evening, Marcus was simply tired, hoping to get home quickly so he could reheat leftovers, finish his homework, and call it a night. But the narrative Karen crafted in her mind was different. She told herself she had read enough stories about young men casing houses, about break-ins that always started with someone just walking and looking. She convinced herself that she was doing her duty by making the call. The dispatcher's voice was calm, asking for details. Karen described Marcus in vague but heavy terms: suspicious, lurking, dangerous. Within minutes, a patrol car was dispatched. For Marcus, the walk that should have been uneventful was about to become a moment that would etch itself into his memory and alter the perception of an entire street. This was no longer about a teenager walking home. This was about what happens when prejudice collides with power, when fear dials 911, and when a life is interrupted simply for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Marcus heard the sirens before he saw the car. At first, he thought they were meant for someone else. After all, he was just walking home. But when the cruiser slowed beside him, the realization struck like ice in his chest. Two officers stepped out, hands hovering near their belts, expressions stern and cautious. "Stop right there," one of them ordered. Marcus froze. His palms began to sweat as his heart pounded. He had seen the scene unfold too many times on the news. He raised his hands instinctively, unsure of what else to do. "Where are you coming from? Where are you going?" The questions came rapid, clipped, each one laced with suspicion. Marcus answered quietly, explaining that he was just coming from school, that his house was only a few blocks away. But his explanations did not erase the doubt in their eyes. Karen, from her porch, watched with grim satisfaction. In her mind, she had been proven right. Why else would the police stop him if not for a valid reason? She sipped her tea, convinced she had done her part to keep the neighborhood safe. As the officers continued pressing Marcus, asking to search his backpack, neighbors began to emerge from their homes. Some peeked through blinds, others stepped onto their porches, whispering among themselves. To them, the scene was unnerving, but no one spoke up. Silence, after all, was safer. Inside Marcus, the humiliation boiled. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was, standing on the street corner like a criminal, his every move scrutinized. He thought of his mother, how she always warned him to be careful, to stay calm, to never give them a reason. He swallowed his anger, but the sting of injustice cut deep. The officers eventually rifled through his backpack, finding nothing more than notebooks, pencils, and a half-empty water bottle. Still, their demeanor did not soften. They asked why he was wearing a hoodie in warm weather, why he seemed nervous. Marcus wanted to shout that anyone would be nervous in his position, but he kept his voice even. The standoff stretched, and the weight of the moment pressed heavier with each second. Then, just as the officers debated whether to take him to the station for further questioning, a black SUV pulled up at the corner. The door opened, and out stepped a woman in hospital scrubs, her ID badge still clipped to her collar. It was Dr. Evelyn Carter, one of the most respected physicians at the city hospital. Known not only for her skill but also for her tireless advocacy in the community, she was a woman whose name commanded respect. And she was Marcus's mother. When she saw her son surrounded by police officers, his hands raised, her entire being ignited with the fury and fear only a mother could know. She rushed forward, demanding to know what was happening. The officers faltered, suddenly less confident as recognition dawned on them. This was not just any mother. This was Dr. Carter, the very woman who had treated the police chief's wife during a medical emergency just months before. The crowd of neighbors grew thicker, whispers rising louder. The weight of what was unfolding was undeniable. What had begun as a baseless suspicion was now spiraling into a confrontation that no one could ignore. Karen, still perched on her porch, felt a twinge of unease. She had no idea who the boy was, and she certainly had no idea who his mother was. That ignorance was about to be exposed for the entire street to see. Dr. Carter stood between her son and the officers, her voice firm, unwavering, filled with the kind of authority that comes from years of commanding a room where life and death hang in the balance. She demanded explanations, her words sharp and direct, her anger undeniable yet controlled. Marcus lowered his arm slowly, his body trembling with the weight of the ordeal. He had wanted to stay silent, to survive the moment, but now, with his mother there, the dam of his restraint began to crack. His eyes burned with tears as he whispered, "I was just walking home." The officers exchanged uneasy glances, their authority dissolving under the scrutiny of a respected community figure. The crowd of neighbors, emboldened by Dr. Carter's presence, began to murmur disapproval. Phones were raised, recording every second, ensuring that the scene would not be erased or forgotten. Karen's confidence wavered. For the first time, she realized the enormity of what she had set in motion. Her call, laced with baseless suspicion, had escalated into a public humiliation near disaster. And now, the boy's identity and his mother stood as a mirror reflecting her prejudice at her. The air was electric with tension. The officers, now cornered by accountability, released Marcus without charge, mumbling half-hearted apologies. But the damage had been done. The humiliation, the fear, the imprint of the experience on Marcus's psyche could not be erased. Dr. Carter, holding her son close, turned to face the neighbors. Her words were measured but heavy, each syllable carrying the weight of centuries of injustice. She spoke not just to the officers, not just to Karen, but to everyone watching. She reminded them that suspicion based on skin color was not safety, it was a weapon. And when wielded carelessly, it destroyed trust, dignity, and lives. The scene lingered long after the patrol car left, after the crowd dispersed, after Marcus and his mother walked back to their home. Willow Creek would never quite be the same. For some, it was an uncomfortable wake-up call, a reminder that prejudice was not abstract but living among them, shaping decisions and threatening lives. For others, it was a moment of denial, an incident they tried to explain away, willing to confront their complicity in silence.